Today's podcast brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audibletrial.com TNRL. Over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android device, Kindle, or MP3 player. Get your free book now at audibletrial.com/TNRL.
Jesus got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. Jesus got out here. Then I read this. It says Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I'm a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian. The very line the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes.
Hey everybody, it's This Non-Religious Life. It is Monday, April 2nd, 2012. I'm your host, Ken. With me all the way across the country, we have Bob.
How's it going?
And Jason.
Hello.
And if you haven't noticed, we're recording on a new day now. And everything's coming out on Mondays instead of Fridays, which is pretty cool.
We're recording on the same day. It's just you're seeing it on a different day.
We're trying a new thing.
You're ruining the magic of it,
Damn
Jason.
it. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Well, it's Jason's brilliance that's allowing us to do it this way anyway. New toys, right?
Yay.
We have a few things to talk about. Did we have any comments that we wanted to bring up? I forgot to ask before the show.
None that I saw.
None? Okay, cool. Just wasn't sure. I didn't check my email until last night because it's been a pretty busy week. But next week is going to be a pretty busy week for a lot of Christians all around the world because Easter's coming up. And today we can talk about that.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of I mean, I guess it shouldn't come as any surprise because I don't remember there being Easter eggs or Easter bunnies in the Bible. But
You didn't read it close enough.
No, I didn't. But I'm getting out of this that yet again Easter is just one other pagan holiday that's been co-opted by Christianity.
Yeah. I mean, it's not uncommon for fertility rituals to occur in the spring. Sometime around the vernal equinox. The first day of spring, everyone gets really excited because the days are getting longer. It's getting warmer. Things are starting to grow again. My tomato plant is starting to bud, which is nice. Maybe by Easter I'll have tomatoes, which will be great.
Our jalapeno plants are doing well. I'm happy about
Really?
that. Yeah.
Oh, I wish I had a jalapeno plant. That'd be great. I'd say it would save me money, but I live in California where jalapeno peppers are like 10 cents a piece. But then again, so are tomatoes. But it's nice to have a little plant. I'm getting totally off topic.
Welcome to This Non-Religious Almanac.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So Easter really, when you get past the whole Christian story of it, it really is just a fertility holiday. That's why you get pictures of bunnies and eggs and all that nonsense that doesn't appear in the Bible around Easter. Even the name Easter itself is taken from a pagan goddess, Esther, who was a fertility goddess. Let's see, where was she? She was a Saxon. I forgot if she was Saxon or Norman, but she was a Saxon goddess of fertility. And so in English people being Anglo-Saxons, the term Easter was adopted. And it's sort of stuck ever since.
I just think that this holiday just maybe had the misfortune of coinciding with Passover.
It did. Well before Easter was celebrated, people were celebrating what we celebrate now as Easter. All around the Christian world.
Yeah,
It just so happened that when they were trying to get the Saxons and other Germanic peoples to adhere to Christianity, it comes easier to co-opt what they're already doing and make it a Christian holiday than it is to abolish old ones and come up with completely new ones. Alexander the Great learned that.
Yeah, I just, like as a kid, I remember going to church for Easter Sunday, which was like one of the 2 days that my parents made me go to church. And I remember I always digged Easter, man. It's like Easter baskets and candy and colored eggs, and then I had to go to church, and then it got really weird. And I never saw the connection.
All right, sweet chocolate and bunnies and Easter egg hunts and shit. And what? Wait, what? Some guy was nailed to a big honking cross? What the fuck?
No,
Yeah.
I think the worst thing that came out of Easter was egg salad.
Egg salad.
I used to love egg salad. But I never understood the I don't know, like, when you're brought up as, a little kid, and like I said, we didn't go to church that often, but Easter was one of the days where we went, and I think probably it was mostly because my grandmother wanted us to go. And I never saw the connection. I never saw the connection between Easter eggs and baskets and chocolate bunnies to a guy being nailed to a chunk of wood.
Yeah. So
technically, Easter wasn't him being nailed to the chunk of wood. It was
it's resurrection.
The resurrection, but even then, I still failed to make the connection. I was just like, I don't get it. So then you had to listen to a guy talk for an hour and a half, and then I would go home and eat Easter candy.
By the time he's done talking, you're more confused than when he went in.
Yeah. Obviously, it didn't have a lasting impression on me because I just didn't take.
Well, maybe the feeling you get when you fill your belly full of chocolate, sweets, and eggs, that nasty-ass sick feeling you get is the feeling that the person has during resurrection.
Maybe. I never felt bad at all. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. It's well, the whole, all right. Let's divide it up. The whole week. I mean, that entire week is a very busy week for Catholics. I remember growing up, my dad's family is all Catholic, so and my mom's family was Episcopalian, so sort of almost the same thing.
This is right. So we're right now. We're in the Holy Week, right? This is the last week of Lent.
Well, Lent actually ended yesterday. Yeah, because yesterday would have been Palm Sunday. So now it's going to go through until you have Good Friday, and then you have Resurrection Sunday, Easter. So Lent's over now. People can go back to doing all the dirty things that they did before, all the things they got out of their system on Fat Tuesday before Ash Wednesday. They can go back to doing those things.
According to Wikipedia, April 1st is the Western observance of Palm Sunday.
Yeah, this year. Yeah.
Yep.
It rotates every year.
So we're in Holy Week.
Yeah, we're in the Holy Week now.
Well, that's good.
There's actually a name for every single day of the Holy Week.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Well, there's the only ones I know are Palm Sunday, Good Friday, and then the one I could never understand was Monday, Thursday.
Oh, Maundy Thursday. Yes. That's what it was.
I always read that as Monday, Thursday.
Monday, Thursday.
It's
Monday,
not really
Thursday.
Thursday,
That doesn't
and
make
it's
sense.
not really Monday.
Yeah.
But I'll bite, Ken.
Maundy
What is
Thursday.
Monday, Thursday?
I actually don't know. I knew the name of it. I used to know the names of all the days for Holy Week. Maundy, Thursday. And you have Holy Monday, Holy Tuesday, Holy Wednesday, Maundy, Thursday. Good Friday.
It commemorates the Last Supper.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you're going by the synoptics, yeah, the Last Supper would have been on a Thursday, because that would have been the Passover for them, or the beginning of the Passover, because the Jewish calendar, a new day starts at sunset. So on that Thursday, when the sun went down, that's when Passover would have started. They would have had the Seder, and then it would have been the rest of Passover on that Friday.
Well, that's cool. Well, let's think about the whole week. So
Sure.
we got Palm Sunday. What happened then?
Palm Sunday is the commemoration of Jesus arriving in Jerusalem. Do you remember, I mean, if you've read the Gospels, there's the whole thing about Jesus riding in on a donkey, and if you read Matthew, he's riding in on 2 donkeys at the same time. But people throw palm fronds. It was sort of a all right. Lord of the Rings, the movies.
All right, now I can relate to that.
See, do you remember when they're leaving to go defend Osgiliath, and they're throwing the flowers down as they're marching out of the city?
Right.
It was sort of the opposite. Jesus is arriving in the city, so they're throwing palm fronds down for him to walk across.
And killing orangutan habitats.
What was that?
Nothing, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it's sort of the opposite. So it's like a triumphant arrival. It's supposed to be something that goes back to the Old Testament. Sort of one of those prophecies that Matthew liked to throw in there. That, he'd arrive on the back of a donkey or a foal, and, there'd be palm fronds thrown down, and it'd be this sort of triumphant entry into Jerusalem to usher in the new kingdom.
But what? So
what
is this? I'm sorry. Is this an instance where the gospel writers were shoehorning Christ into prophecy, or are they making more of it than what it really was?
It could be a little of both. It's important for Jewish authors to force Jesus into, Jerusalem. That was, for Jews, that was the center of their universe. The center of the world was Jerusalem. It was the holy city.
Yeah, but I also thought for some of the Jews then that their coming Messiah was supposed to be, this big gleaming hero. He was supposed to be, the slayer of the unrighteous and the defender of the faith, and Jesus was a meek, impoverished carpenter.
Yeah, they wanted a David, or at least a Josiah, someone who was not divine, but incredibly devout. But mostly they wanted a monarch. They wanted a new king. The closest thing they'd had to a king for quite some time were the Herods, who were not Davidian at all. They were little more than Roman puppets.
I guess the question I'm asking is the picture that was always painted for me, growing up in that not very religious household and only going to church twice a year, was that Palm Sunday Jesus rides into Jerusalem on the donkey, and it was always painted, and I've always seen it as like this huge parade. Where people are, like you said, throwing flowers and palm fronds. But would that really be what would it happen, or would it be like 6 guys standing at the wall going, "Hey, man, thanks for coming"? Because he wouldn't have had a parade. Why would it have been a parade if he was a little-known, impoverished carpenter?
Yeah, assuming it did happen, which is a really gigantic assumption based on nothing. Assuming it did happen, it probably would have been a few of Jesus's followers doing it because they knew it had to happen, you know?
Right. Was it like,
Staging
you know,
off
like,
of it.
hey, man, you're the Messiah, so you need to get on this donkey and we need to throw palms in front of you?
Yeah. It's definitely a mixture of, you know, the people there doing it because they know it has to be done. I mean, Jesus even admits to things in the Gospels where he's like, you know, this has to be done to fulfill what's been said, you know? So it's like, okay, I'm the Messiah, so we have to do this, 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 this. Here's our itinerary of what we have to do so that I can make sure that I am the Messiah. If I don't do these things, then I'm not.
So pretty much what you're saying is Jesus was a diva who had a rider for every town that he had to, you know.
Essentially, you know? It's like, when I do my show at Jerusalem, I want palm fronds and only green
show.
M&Ms, you know?
You guys, the big show is this week.
Yeah.
We're having a big dinner. Everybody's invited.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not you,
God
Judas.
damn it, I said unleavened bread. Unleavened bread. Amateurs.
Where's my sparkling water?
You know.
That's kind of
Where
funny.
are my bitter herbs?
Do you watch Mr. Deity?
I've seen like the first 2 seasons, yeah.
His jokes are exactly like that. That's exactly how it is. I'm doing the big show in Jerusalem. I'm gonna need, you know, a contract says I gotta have palm on the ground. Got to throw some palms at Jesus.
Yeah, I love
He's
it. I
not
love
Jesus. He's Jesse.
that. Jesse. Yeah. Who's not to get off topic, but I love the role his wife plays as the devil.
Oh yeah, Lucy.
Lucy. Yeah.
That's very funny. Anyway,
good-
yeah, I do like Mr. Deity a lot, and sometimes I think of how. I mean, I do have these questions about the Gospels, and sometimes like I like Mr. Deity's take on them. Really puts
Yeah.
it down to a level I understand.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about the triumphal entry, you know, you were saying shoehorning, and that's exactly what Matthew does. Because the old prophecy says that, you know, the Messiah will arrive on a donkey and on a foal. And in old Jewish literature, like, the word "and" could mean, you know, or the word they use that usually translates as "and" can also mean sort of a clarification. So it's like a donkey. It could be, you know, it could be said that this animal could be a foal, you know, like a baby donkey, you know, to be more clear. But Matthew seems to be kind of inept at that, and he literally has Jesus ride in on a donkey and a foal at the same time. So there's a donkey and a baby donkey, and he's sort of riding them both, which I can imagine would be very, like...
Is that like the guy standing on 2 horses, like in a circus act?
Yeah,
Through the ring?
But, you know, imagine one of those animals is fully grown and the other one isn't. So,
Well, that's strange. So,
yeah.
So I know I'm like, again, I'm not super up on the synoptics, but do all the synoptics deal with his arrival into Jerusalem?
Yeah.
Do they each handle it differently, or you know, or and again, this is back to the harmonization. Like who tells the story best and who tells the story worst?
It's generally the same thing. It's one of those points where, in the synoptics, Jesus' actions, you know, what he does, is generally the same. What's different is usually what he says. So the arrival into Jerusalem from here on out is basically the same story. You know, he arrives, he has his Last Supper, he, you know, goes to the garden, gets caught, Judas trades him in, you know, he's tried, he's crucified, and then, you know, they find the empty tomb. Then Matthew and Luke have the resurrection appearance. But it's generally the same story. If you like shorter stories, Mark's better. Less discoursing. If you like longer stories, Matthew probably.
Is there anything to be gained about thinking about questioning like how they're different and why they're different?
Oh yeah, there's plenty.
I mean, what are like I'm just want to like sort of eke in day by day, like what are the differences in the Gospels for Palm Sunday?
That would take a lot of time to break down.
That's his next book.
Yeah, my next book, right?
Yeah, it is.
Cliff Notes version.
Cliff Notes version. Off the top of my head, I don't know what's exactly different about Palm Sunday aside from Matthew tries to shoehorn in a lot of prophecy at the time. Making sure that it's very literally true what the prophecy says. I believe he's quoting from Jeremiah at that point in time with the donkey and the foal at the same time, but I believe they're about the same there, aside from that whole two animals thing in Matthew. Okay,
that's cool. I was just reading here that the Holy Week starts with Palm Sunday, but we missed there's a something Saturday that starts the whole thing. Holy
it's
Saturday.
The last day of Lent, which I forget what the name of that day is.
I see. Yeah.
Just like Fat Tuesday is the last day of Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
And then Ash Wednesday is the beginning of Lent. There's a lot of names for days in like Catholic and Orthodox Christianity. In fact, if you've ever seen a Catholic calendar, every single day has a name. Like all 365 days, including leap day, all have a name. Usually it's just named after some saint, but
all right. So that's Sunday. We rode in on the donkey and had palm trees thrown at us.
The
middle of the week is actually kind of.
So, hey, dude, I have another question about Catholicism in general. Sure. Are the palm leaves from this Palm Sunday, are they saved all year until next year for Ash Wednesday?
That I don't know.
That's how I thought it was. Like the palm leaves of this Palm Sunday are saved, and then next year at the beginning of Lent they're burned, and those are the ashes that are used in Ash Wednesday.
It's possible.
Well, anyway,
I didn't attend Catholic services that intensely when I was growing up, so I don't know. And the Episcopalian church I went to, while they observed most of the sacraments and stuff, and definitely celebrated Ash Wednesday and all that, they didn't do the whole ash on your forehead thing. So
yeah, all right. Well, all right. Moving on to Monday. Now it's tomorrow. Today is Holy Monday. Yesterday was Palm Sunday. Today is Holy Monday. And I was reading that the stuff that happened today, depending on how you read it, is we have the cursing of the fig tree.
Fuck you, fig tree.
Yeah.
What is that all about? The cursing of the fig tree.
The basic premise is there's a fig tree that isn't offering up fruit, and Jesus curses the thing.
Fuck you, fig tree.
Exactly like that. Exactly like what Jason's doing. And the whole thing is like, the fig tree never bore fruit ever again. Like essentially,
I'm a fig tree. You can't make me do shit. Fuck you, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my reenactment.
The point really was that. It's sort of a nuanced theological point about if you're not offering up what you're supposed to offer up, then you're damned. But it's one of those sort of neat parables that gets thrown into the Bible.
So wait, back up. So there was this tree that was not producing anything. Jesus got pissed off at this tree for not doing its fair share in the world. And so he put a curse on the tree.
To not produce.
Make sure that it never did it ever again. Like maybe he was just really hungry. Maybe he had low blood sugar. And
No. That's not an action of a person that's hungry.
I see where you're going.
This is an action of somebody who's high or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, think about this. Like my car won't start, and so I'm going to curse it so that it will never start again.
Yeah.
You've done a great job there, guy. You're magic.
Yeah.
This tree isn't bearing fruit. I shall curse it so that it shall never bear fruit.
It's a miracle.
He was really pissed off at that tree, you know? Like,
to be honest with you, this is the first time I've ever heard the cursing of the fig tree, and I think it sounds a little silly.
I think we need to do a skit. I think we need to fly Ken back out. We need to get costumes and do a little skit of this.
A little skit with the tree.
Well, now at least I know something big is happening today. We're cursing fig trees.
So is it a sin to eat figs today?
Maybe. No, because those fig trees that offered up fruit, they're good.
Oh,
those are good trees.
But they may have the seed of the demon fig.
No, because that tree never offered up fruit ever again.
The demon fig.
The demon seed.
Get behind me, Satan tree.
Have you ever seen that comedian? There was a comedian that like, I forget who it was. We had a trained dog, and he was talking about how great his dog was trained, and the dog's like laying on the ground, and he's like, "Stay, don't get up."
That's the way it works.
Oh God! All right, okay. I agree. That's a little silly.
Little.
Yeah.
I think that's the best story.
All right. So some of the other things that happen on Holy Monday is the questioning of Jesus's authority.
I think that follows up after you witness him cursing a tree that's not producing. Yeah. You're like, wait a minute. I don't think your authority is really.
Yeah, I could have done that.
Yeah, right. Oh God, you're gonna make me go.
And then it was the questioning of Jesus' authority, and then the cleansing of the temple. What's that all about?
That's when Jesus goes in and flips over the money changers' tables and starts, beating people with like ropes, essentially like a whip. He goes into the temple and essentially sees money changers. The only money that was allowed to be used in the Jerusalem temple were shekels, the traditional money of the Jews. So they didn't allow, Roman coins or anything like that, mostly because the coins bear the picture of usually the Caesar at the time, who was kind of considered like a deity on earth. So it was like a graven image. They didn't like it. So the shekels only had, I believe, they had a menorah on one side and the temple on the other. So that was considered okay. So no graven images inside the temple, but these are people who are also selling like sacrificial pigeons and lambs, and they're making a profit for themselves by being unfair in their trading, saying, "Oh yeah, I'll give you, this exchange rate, so that they make money." And he gets sort of pissed off and takes over the temple, which is an interesting point, because if that happened, assuming that it happened, that definitely makes Jesus a sort of revolutionary, because there's no way he could have taken over the temple and then just walked free. There are guards everywhere. You're talking Roman guards.
Well, what I've always found fascinating with this story is because every anti-capitalistic literature or person that I've met in the literature that I've read always use this story, if they are catering to the Christian mind, always use this story saying, look, this proves that, I've even heard Christians do it, that proves that Jesus was anti-capitalist and Jesus was, all of these, very leftist ideas, that this is always the cornerstone that holds all their thoughts together, that Jesus was this great, as you said earlier, revolutionary type.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one direction that the literature points. You see Jesus and his followers, gleaning from fields, which is in the Old Testament. That's what you do to feed the homeless. You leave a certain percentage of what's left in the fields once you take what you can, and just leave it there for the poor, and the orphans and the widows. And part of
that is if you're carrying your harvest and you drop some, you don't go back to pick it up. You leave it
exactly. You just leave it. Someone who needs it will get it. You have Jesus saying that it's easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. And then you essentially have Jesus, getting a bullwhip and beating the shit out of a bunch of bankers.
Is this where the usury laws stemmed from that came about later?
Usury laws?
Yeah, they were the laws that the church established that you could not lend money for profit.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah.
Which is why, like in the Renaissance and even before then, all of the money lenders were always Jewish because they didn't have to abide by the usury laws.
Yeah, it's more than possible.
Wow.
It definitely makes sense, at a time when these books are basically used to create the laws. Yeah, that makes sense.
Huh.
I never thought about that.
Okay, so he gets mad at the money changers in the temple, but isn't that I don't know, like it just seems like he's mad at the rules that God made up. I mean, who came up with the rule that you couldn't use Roman coins?
Well, it's not that you couldn't use Roman coins. He wasn't getting mad at the fact that they were changing money. He was getting mad at the fact that people were making profits doing so. In the Old Testament, there are very strict guidelines for essentially weights and measures. I mean, you can, trade and commerce was actually dictated in the Old Testament. And what these people were essentially doing, or you're made to think that they're doing, is they're sort of being shady fellows, being like, having one set of weights to sell you shekels and another set of weights so that you can buy your currency back when you're done.
Mm.
So that they're making a profit. They're probably getting, a pack of sacrificial doves, for, 12 for a shekel and selling them a shekel a piece, So they're making a rather large profit. They're making themselves rich by doing services to the temple. And he gets irate and drives them all out.
So very similar to what we see with TV evangelists and
oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, but that's different. And I'm not saying this is wrong, but my understanding of this is that along with the money changing, but also the Old Testament had all these rules like you got to go to the temple and you got to sacrifice a goat and you got to sacrifice a dove for this and blah blah blah. And not everybody had these goats and doves lying around that they could just sacrifice, but they had to meet these requirements, and so they had to go to the temple, and rather than bring the goat or the dove with you, because you probably had to walk, several miles or make a long trip, you had to buy it there. And those guys were profiting off of the sale of sacrificial animals too. Do we still have Ken? I don't know, and I never understood the problem that the New Testament has with that, when it's basically people following the rules laid out in the Old Testament. I don't know. Did we lose Ken? Thang.
So wait, what were we talking about
I have no idea.
right before?
I got it. We were talking about the
We're recording, just go.
we were talking about the sale of sacrificial animals at the temple, which was a rule that was established. Like the observant Jews were going to temple to follow the rules and sacrifice a goat or a dove or whatever it might be, but they weren't able to bring those animals with them, and so they had to buy them from the temple from somebody that was selling them, and apparently that was a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
So
are we good at recording?
We are recording now.
This is the show.
Okay.
Welcome.
Good. All right. Yeah. I wasn't sure if we were going right now. All right. Cool. Yeah, that was essentially Jesus' problem with what was going on there. People were making a hefty profit off of, doing what is just supposed to be done at the temple. He didn't think it was supposed to be a place of business or profit. That's why, he grabs a piece of rope and starts whipping people, to get them out.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like the image of Christ whipping people.
Yeah, the Prince of Peace
Yeah.
beating the shit out of a bunch of bankers.
Prince of Peace in there, kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like a modern Jesus kicks down the door of a bank with a shotgun. Get out.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
no
like-
wonder the Pharisees were pissed off at him.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't all that blaspheming either, you know? It's just
No.
it was the fact that he, by force, took over the temple. At a time of, like, it was almost Passover, you know? Like, this is when they get most of their business.
Yeah, this is a big money day.
Yeah. It used to be it's sort of like how the Hajj is now with Muslims. Back then, like, if you were capable to go to Jerusalem once in your lifetime during the Passover, you did. You know, the only people who really didn't were people in the diaspora who didn't get a chance to. You know, if you're a Jew living in, you know, somewhere on the Iberian Peninsula, obviously you didn't go over to Jerusalem. But, you know, if you lived in the area and you had the means to make it there, it's something you did, you know, at least once.
All right, well, so Tuesday we clean the temple.
Yeah.
Or no, the Monday's the cleaning of the temple.
Monday.
So that's today. So tomorrow, what do we have to look forward to? I was looking for what the significance is of Holy Tuesday, and the best I could come up with was the parable of the 10 virgins. Do you know that one?
I don't, actually. Not off the top of my head. Let's see.
It's also known as the
Parable of the 10 Bridesmaids.
Parable of the
Matthew
Wise
25:1.
and Foolish Virgins.
Yeah. 25:1 through 25:13.
Oh.
I don't know. There's a lot of parables at this
Well,
point.
this one, the parable of 10 virgins, is this is in Matthew. There's 5 virgins who are prepared for the bridegroom's arrival, and they're rewarded, while the 5 who are not prepared are excluded from the marriage feast. And it has the eschatological theme: be prepared for the day of judgment.
Oh, yeah. And the door was shut. Oh, okay, yeah, I see that along there. There are an ass ton of parables at the end of this, especially when you're in Matthew.
So on Wednesday, we prepare for Judgment Day.
Yeah.
That's good, because we keep waiting for that to happen.
It's coming.
Any day now.
I might add that these divisions about what happens are kind of made up, because the Gospels themselves don't divide it up into days. They just sort of say, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, and then, you know, and then we get Passover and the crucifixion.
Yeah. All right, well, hey, great.
Yeah.
They,
So-
we talk about that a lot, about the harmonization of the Gospels and how they don't line up, and there's inconsistencies between them. There isn't an internal consistency.
No, there isn't.
Which is exactly what you would expect to have happen if you had, different guys all recounting the same story from different points of views with different objectives.
Yeah. It's funny because when you get into the different Gospels, like Mark doesn't have a lot of this stuff. Mark has different parables. He has the parable of the wicked tenants. And that's the only parable I see, actually. Jesus curses the fig tree, cleansed the temple, lesson of the withered fig tree. The authority is questioned, the wicked tenants, the question about taxes, the question about resurrection, first commandment, question about David's son, announcement of the scribes, widow's offering, destruction of the temple foretold. Yeah. So, it's sort of people taking it and saying, okay, well, he has a week to do this. He does this on this day, this on this day, this on this day, this on this day, this on this day. And there we go. There's the week.
Yeah, well, it looks like Tuesday's probably the weakest of the holy days.
Yeah,
we got
then we
parables.
get Holy Wednesday.
Well, Holy Wednesday seems like it's a big one because it's Spy Wednesday, and that's the day Judas conspires to betray Christ.
Yeah.
Which, okay, that's a big one.
The bag of silver.
Yeah, 30 silver coins.
Mm-hmm.
So, not to get in promo mode like we said we were going to do, but did you read the Ehrman book, The Gospel of Judas?
I didn't.
Oh, man,
I did.
It was really good.
I definitely meant to pick it up, but I ended up picking up Misquoting Jesus instead, actually, which I thought was excellent.
Which is available for download at
It is.
www.audibletrial/tnrl.com. Audible.com/
No.
Shit.
You got it right.
It's
You got it right.
www.audibletrial.com/tnrl.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you sign up, it's free. You get a 30-day free trial and one free audio download. And the one to download we're talking about is Misquoting Jesus by Bart Ehrman.
Yeah, it's honestly one of my favorite books on the subject. It's an excellent primer if you want to get into exactly what we're talking about with harmonization of scriptures and how things got all sorts of mixed up. So I think it's one of his best.
I read that one as well, and it is very good. And that's sort of what got me inspired to read more and pick up the Gospel of Judas. And I remember in Sunday school, the little bit that I went, that Judas is always painted as a villain.
What's really funny, actually, who you were talking about painting, is in Renaissance art, he's the only one painted with Jewish features.
Oh, well, like that time and place in Europe was a little anti-Semitic.
A little. I'd say a lot. Yeah, it's actually, it's one of those things where they sort of tied it into the whole idea that Jews were stingy or money grubbing or backstabbing or whatever, and none of which is true, but it definitely helped them reinforce that sort of stereotype. So if you ever look at images of, say, Da Vinci's Last Supper and all that, you can usually pick out Judas because he's usually darker, usually has a bigger nose, curly hair. Those ideas of what a stereotypical Jewish person looks like. Even though I know Jewish people who are whiter than me, and I'm pretty white. So.
All right, so so now we're up to Wednesday. Not a good day for Jesus.
No. Then we get to Maundy Thursday.
Maundy Thursday, Holy Thursday, and this is the celebration of the Last Supper.
The Last Supper, yeah.
Which, to be honest with you, man, I always say that. Not that I wouldn't be honest with you.
Whatever.
The most profound thing about the supper is now that brings us to the Eucharist, and that really skeeves me out.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, and it's almost certainly drawn from Mithraism. It's a direct connection with Mithraism, probably a late addition to the text, or in addition to the text where the author knew of a Mithraic version of this, where it was bread and wine symbolizing the body and blood of Mithras.
I was always like, okay, you get a cracker and a sip of wine, and
Yeah.
that I was always like, whatever, and it never really dawned on me until I started paying attention to what they were saying about that, when they were like, no, this really becomes the blood of Christ and the body of Christ, and then I was like, ugh, that's no good.
Yeah, transubstantiation. It's the Catholics believe that it actually, once it enters your body, it becomes the same substance as the body and blood of Christ. It's not a metaphor.
What's the purpose of having the blood and the flesh?
I don't know, man, but
it makes you one with Christ. Is the point?
Makes you a cannibalistic death cult, is what it makes you.
Yeah. I mean, the original intention of it was probably symbolic. When Jesus says, "Do this in remembrance of me," he's
So wait. We gotta back up, because in modern times today, when we read the paper and we find out that an obsessive partner of someone, male or female, cooked pieces of their flesh and hair in the food so their partner could consume them and they could be one with a person and bond their love, we don't go, "Oh, that's great." We say, "That's fucking crazy." I mean,
no, it's nuts. Believe me. It's one of those things where, I grew up in like I said, Episcopalian house where very, very Anglo-Catholic, so they're still observing things like the Eucharist. And I never thought about it. I took it every Sunday.
Admittedly, when I was the few times I went to church and there was the Eucharist, admittedly it was like a Methodist church or a Presbyterian church, and those things were regarded as symbolic, and I get that. But even eating somebody's flesh symbolically skeeves me out, and then to learn that in strict Catholicism, where the idea of transubstantiation is in place, that no, it's not symbolic. It really becomes the body of Christ.
Yeah, they believe that it is.
You can't be vegan with that religion.
I suppose not.
No animals are hurt in it.
That's weird to me. Ew.
Yeah.
Did you read
It's of the same substance as manna, really. Like when you're reading the Exodus story, it becomes not a literal flesh, but it becomes the same substance as his flesh, which is it sort of beats around the bush of that whole Trinity thing, where once you stop talking about it, it sort of it lands somewhere you don't want it to be. It's like
continued hand
you're eating flesh, and they're like, no, it's the same substance as the flesh.
But if it's the same substance, but it's not the flesh, so you don't really have that connection with Christ because it's not really the flesh.
Exactly. So, no matter where you land, once you stop talking about it, most Catholics don't even know transubstantiation is a part of their faith. I remember that poll that came out a couple of years ago where it showed that atheists knew more about world religions and regular religions. Catholics were one of the worst scoring groups for their own religion. Where more than half, I believe it was, didn't know that the Eucharist wasn't metaphorically a body of Christ. It was supposed to be literally the body and blood of Christ.
Oh man, that really creeps me out, and I don't think I'd be comfortable with that in any context. Ew.
Yeah.
All right, well, you know what? And here's the thing. As weird as that is, it gets creepier and weirder when we get to Good Friday.
Pause for dramatic effect.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, all right, so that was Thursday. So now Friday.
It's Friday.
Friday is the crucifixion.
Yeah.
And all I ever remember about Friday from going was like, don't eat meat on Friday.
That was a later thing.
You did that when you ate the flesh.
Yeah. But yeah. It's the Passion narrative, which if you ever seen Golgotha Chainsaw Massacre, also known as the Passion of the Christ, it's a pretty bloody, crazy nonsense,
Did you watch
5 minutes in that movie without bloodshed?
Yeah, that's really bad. And again, that whole story of the Passion of Christ, where it just seems like that movie itself was like a snuff film.
It was a snuff film. It was a religious snuff film.
I don't understand how people could venerate
torture porn,
somebody suffering so much. I mean, that's horrible.
All I'm saying is Saw movies do well.
But that's a Saw movie. It's make believe. It's fiction. This
isn't.
Well, all right. There's that. But I'm not basing my worldview on whether Carrie Elwes actually sawed off his leg or not. And then okay, so but you know what's going to happen on Friday? Friday is going to have a death toll. It does every year. Every year there is a body count associated with Good Friday, and it's usually somebody that's crucifying themselves or doing some kind of horrible masochistic act where they feel that their suffering brings them closer to God. And every year somebody dies.
But
Oh yeah.
I bet you could take any day of the year and find out somebody did something fucking crazy so they could be closer to God.
Well, this is the day to do it, man. If you do it on any other day than Good Friday, you've missed a golden opportunity.
Is it really a golden opportunity?
I mean, if I felt like I needed to crucify myself to be closer to God, Good Friday's the day to do it. That's the day he was crucified.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you have in a lot of countries, you have the crazy, processions and people actually getting, crucified.
Yeah, I saw it last year, and I'm sure I'll see it again this year. About and I think it's prevalent in the Philippines, where guys actually get themselves nailed to a cross. And there was like some guy who's like, "This is my 7th year in a row doing it," and I'm no way.
Well, remember last year we talked about the news story about the person who was found crucified out.
Right, that guy died,
and there was a camera set on him, and filmed his suffering, and he did die. I mean,
that to me is obscene. Obscene. I just can't get behind any religion that espouses that kind of veneration of suffering. That's awful.
I mean, the whole point is to say, look what he did for you. Look what he did for you. Even though when you really start to dissect it, philosophically, you're like, wait, God sacrificed himself to himself so that he could go to heaven and just come right back? What the fuck, man? Like, that's not sacrifice. Nothing happened.
Right. And if he's really divine, then how much suffering is there? And how if he's really omnipotent, then he would have known that this was going to happen, and he would have known that it was going to happen. It could have avoided it.
And what a injustice that we do to Jesus for not sinning.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've said that before.
That is a way of looking
Jesus
at it.
wants me to sin. That's why he died. I don't want him to die in vain. Missed opportunity if you don't sin. Jesus died for nothing otherwise.
Yep.
Oh God, that's just that is skeevy to me. That is really
yeah.
That's when it gets and just the amount of applause that human torture gets is beyond me. And you wait, Friday. We'll when we do the next show on
you'll have a tally
next week. We'll see how many people died.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if there's even a death toll, because
there will be.
Next day we record is Monday, which is the day after Easter. So who knows if they'll have those stats out yet?
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm sure there'll be something in the news.
So we get the crucifixion is on Friday, and then Saturday. What's Saturday?
Saturday, nothing
Holy
happens.
Saturday.
Holy Saturday. In fact, actually, I remember Holy Saturday, because if you go to church on Holy Saturday, Episcopalian churches, they might do this in Catholic churches too. I know the liturgy is usually very light, and I know the altar is completely bare. There's no candles, no books, nothing, no vestments over it, no altar cloth. It's completely bare. Saturday is that sort of boring day where like, oh, Jesus is dead. Huh. Better go back to work. Shit.
What do we do
Time
now?
to start paying taxes again. Saturday, and on Saturday, nothing happened. Saturday is the day of anticlimax. Everyone was expecting this great, leader, and he ended up getting killed in possibly the most humiliating way you can imagine. Which takes us to Easter.
And one of the things that I think is interesting when we're talking about harmonization and inconsistencies is in all the synoptic gospels, the resurrection is always told very differently.
Yeah, or not told at all. In the Gospel of Mark, the original ending is at chapter 16, verse 8. And the women fled and told no one, essentially, because they were afraid. And that's the end of the story. You know, like, the women go... I'll actually pull it up. The women go to the tomb, and they find it empty. Let's see, 8. Let's see. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, Salome brought spices that they might go and anoint him. So what they're doing is the anointing of the dead. They take, you know, these oils and spices and stuff, and they go and place them on the body of the dead.
So they can eat them later. That's like a seasoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're seasoning them so they can make, you know, Jesus jerky. And they see a young man sitting to the right side dressed in white. And he essentially tells them, you know, don't go crazy, you know, Jesus is gone, he's risen, he wants you to go tell the disciples and Peter to meet him in Galilee. And they get freaked the fuck out, and they run away. And that's the end of the story in Mark. Matthew tells it a bit differently. Where are we? Where are we? 28.
Well, while he's looking up that, I don't think I've ever heard the phrase from the Bible, freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
My own translation.
And thou shalt not freaketh the fuck out.
Yeah, right. Now in Matthew, it's Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. They go to see, because they're gonna do this. But there's an earthquake, and an angel of the Lord descends from heaven and rolls back the stone. And the guards that were placed in front of the tomb get scared. And the angel tells the women not to be afraid. And
freaketh not the fuck out.
Yeah, and Jesus actually shows up.
Word.
And tells them to go to Galilee. Or wait. Yeah. Or Jesus shows up in Galilee and they hang out.
What up? How's that blunt?
In Luke. And this is, yeah. I believe it's just the women, is what it says.
This makes good radio right now.
Yeah. Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and Mary, the mother of James, and the other women went to see him, and I believe they see two men in dazzling apparel. So, and I believe tells them to go to Jerusalem, not Galilee. So, I mean, you have all these different things, and then Jesus shows up and hangs out with them. You know, they get a party on, they go out for ribs or something, and then Jesus sends them to heaven.
Can't do ribs, you give that to the woman. Oh!
They, yeah.
That was good.
This whole idea of, like, the bodily resurrection, and, I don't know, we were talking about how if the tomb of Jesus showed the actual remains of Jesus Christ, had his bones in it, even if it was true, that would throw a huge monkey wrench into Christianity at large, because then it's no longer a bodily resurrection, it's a spiritual resurrection, which, like Price said, like, my Uncle Mordecai was spiritually resurrected. I could say that about anybody.
Yeah. And actually, you know what? The spiritual resurrection was one of the things that the early church clung to when you're talking about the Paulinists, the people who were following the teachings of the Apostle Paul. Because when you read Paul, there is no There's no bodily Christ. In fact, actually, when you read John, John has like one foot in Docetism. I mean, it's very possible to read the Gospel of John and think there is nothing about this that makes Jesus to be human at all. You know, he just appears to be human. You know, when you read either John or any of the Pauline epistles, you imagine Jesus just sort of appearing as a fully grown man and then going about his business.
Yeah, I never I don't know, like the whole bit about the resurrection just and like it's one of those like it's like the carrot and the stick. You know, the resurrection is certainly like the carrot, and everybody's holding it up like, hey, see, look, you can get this too. You just have to follow these rules and do what we say. And you know you get it because look, it happened to him. Here's our proof.
It's like a pyramid scheme.
It does seem like a pyramid scheme.
Now find 2 more people to go.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Go knock on these doors and
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah.
You know, you mentioned earlier the Shroud of Turin before we started recording, and I really would like to revisit the Shroud of Turin because
I think we should.
That was great, and I don't know, like I've been reading the Sam Harris book, The End of Faith, and he brings up a really good point where he talks about faith and how the faithful are, I don't know, venerated as the faith is some quality, and yet if the radiometric dating on the Shroud of Turin would have pegged it at like AD 30 Sunday on Passover, you know, if it would have pinned that date exactly, everybody would have cheered. All of the faithful would have been like, "Ha, see, here is our proof." It's like they claim not to need proof, but they want it so badly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Because they want to play in the major leagues, right? You know, faith is good for themselves, and they'll use it in an argument. But
you know, even thinking about the resurrection, even if Christianity at large would have just stuck with a spiritual resurrection, then I could never refute that claim. Like, wow, you know, you might actually be right. You could actually have something there. But no, they make the claim for a bodily resurrection, something that can be proven to be demonstrably false.
Wouldn't you be able to? Okay, if there was a spiritual resurrection, if let's say that happened, and that's true, and that's the foundation of everything, wouldn't there be at some point being able to a way to prove that?
No, you couldn't, or at least you in no way that I could think of.
Yeah.
And what's buzzing?
Keep going.
But you know what I mean, like, and to claim a bodily resurrection, that's huge.
Yeah, but you're also talking about a time when all you had to say to most people to convince them was, and the tomb was empty, and people were like, oh,
yeah, and my brother's cousin's best friend's sister's boyfriend saw it.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean? That was the time when? Has that changed?
I think a little bit.
I don't think
I'd like to hope so, at least.
No. It has not.
You know, this was. I'm, you know, definitely fighting on the side of improving literacy today, but literacy back then was very low. You know, people, if you think critical faculties are, you know, almost running on empty for most people today, back then it was almost non-existent.
Here's
you know,
my
these stories,
example.
because not only did they have this Jesus story, but this story rings familiar of so many stories that they would have heard before, things that they would have taken as, you know, very possible. And all you have to do is say, and then the tomb was empty. And they're like, oh, son of a bitch, you got me, you know? And it's funny because apologists try to do it today. They're like, and the empty tomb. You know, if you go back to our first episode, that was one of that guy's major arguments that the tomb was empty. It's you have no idea what happened to the tomb. You don't even know if the tomb was empty. You just know people said the tomb was empty.
Well, then you just made my point. No, it hasn't changed. If there's people in the church doing that now, it is still happening.
I think it gains less following today than it used to, though.
I don't know. I mean, I think we're in this vicious loop. I was telling Bob about this before the show, and it just kind of drives me nuts. You know, people on our side look at Pat Robertson and say, that motherfucker is crazy. That dude is out of his mind. He says some of the most insane things. And then as soon as he says something that you agree with, they're like, oh, look what Pat Robertson said. Yay. Because, like, for example, there, you know, everybody's freaks out that he says about 9/11 and everything. But as soon as he says, you know what, marijuana should be legal, everybody who thought he was a nut is now posting everywhere. It's like, look what Pat Robertson says. Yay. No, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my...
You can, just not with Pat Robertson.
No.
That man is too awful.
It would be different.
So who cares what he says about good things? Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, you know, I think, you know, you can have it both ways sometimes, I think.
No, you
I agree with Bart Ehrman on textual criticism, you know, the transmission of ancient texts, but I think as soon as he steps one foot into the historical Jesus arena, he loses all credibility.
Well, you're setting up that division. Most people everything that I've seen since Pat Robertson said that marijuana, you should smoke marijuana, or it should be legal or whatever, be treated as alcohol. People who 10 posts earlier were saying that he's a nut, he's a fruitcake, or saying Pat Robertson's saying this and he's right, but they're not putting that division on there. It's like he's still fucking crazy. It's just like
yeah.
It's just
and he still is fucking crazy.
The point of the story is that, going back to what we were saying earlier, is I still think it happens today because we've created a culture, we made it acceptable in this culture that we can grab whatever fits our likings from no matter who it comes from, and say, you know, that's the way it is. Whether it's somebody you're calling crazy 1 minute, they say something that you agree with, like 2 seconds later, you're like, you agree with it. I don't know, but it's crazy.
Well, it's we fall back again and again on subtlety and nuance, and part of that is that just because somebody opens their mouth and I happen to agree with one thing that they say doesn't mean I have to agree with everything that they say.
Then put that forward. Don't embrace it.
I sort of accept that as a given. I sort of operate that I don't say it every time, and maybe I should more, but you know, just everything that comes out of that Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris or Daniel Dent, everything that they write doesn't mean I agree with everything. I like to think about what they write. Yeah. I like to think about what they say, but I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but I like to think about it. And
exactly.
Pat
I
Roberts,
like to think about things that people I don't agree with say, because it's good to sort of read both sides of what's going on. You know, the reason why I have on my iPod right now, I have more podcasts from Reformed Theological Seminary than I do from anything else. You know, because I like to hear what the other side has to say.
But the difference is the difference between liking to hear what the other side says, so you can get a fuller understanding of your beliefs and the way you see the world, is different from being against something that somebody's saying, and then when they say something that you agree with, holding it up like, oh, you see, it's truth.
Well, right.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, if Pat Robertson says we should decriminalize marijuana, and I might happen to agree with that, that doesn't mean I have to believe him when he says the tomb was empty.
Yes, but you don't have to hold up something that you agree with him as ultimate truth just because Pat Robertson said it.
Oh, not at all.
But that's what's happening.
Yeah, well, that should that is an exercise in credulity.
Yeah. Where are we on time?
We're time to go.
Time to go. That's what
we made it all the way through the week.
We did.
I know.
We did. We should definitely talk about Shrouded Turin next week because I love that.
Yeah, we'll go back to it, and just so everyone knows, what was that guy's name? I forget. The guy we challenged to come on the show.
Oh yeah. He still hasn't come on the show.
He still hasn't.
I've emailed him twice.
Yeah. I mean, it's out there. Everybody knows
it's
that
out
we
there.
invite
Everyone
him.
knows. Anyone who follows the show knows that we have the a standing challenge for him to come on the show just to talk about it. Not a challenge, but invitation.
No, it's a
Come on the
challenge
show
now
and
because
talk.
the invitation was denied twice. It's a challenge now.
Yeah.
But anyway, before you get into the exits, let me remind everyone of our sponsor, which is audible.com. If you go to this website, audibletrial.com/TNRL, which the abbreviations for This Non-Religious Life, you can get a free audiobook. You sign up for a 30-day free trial. They're normally, if you just go to their website, you only get a 10-day trial. But because you're going through our website, going through audibletrial.com NRL, you get a 30-day free trial plus a free audiobook. And there are a ton of audiobooks that you can get from them for everything, from fiction, nonfiction, everything that you possibly want is on there. And like the books that y'all recommended on this episode and last episode, they're on there. They're read by the author. So definitely check it out. Again, that's audibletrial.com/TNRL. It helps just by signing up for 30-day free trial helps us maintain this show, and you get something free out of it. So do that now. All right, take it away, Ken.
Okay. So if anyone wants to contact us, you can get us at 757-337-2195. You can email us, nonreligious@zombie-popcorn.com. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/thisnonreligiouslife. Put us on your circles on Google+. Go to the website, and I have someone at my door.
I hear that.
But
The guy's name is Dan Porter. We're still waiting for his response.
yes, and that's it. So, go to zombie-popcorn.com, sign up for the newsletter, get everything about everything every week. You'll find out what we talk about on all our shows, and